Welcome to another fine episode of Pixel Talk, the show where we discuss what it means to be human from a pixel's point of view. And now, here is your host, Fivezy.
Hello world. I'm Fivezy, and I want to know the value of detachment. In a world where so many people are striving for more and more stuff, the practice of letting go seems like a true rebel move. Okay, Gumball. Is it a virtue to hold the things of this world loosely, or is detachment the ultimate form of laziness?
Detachment is one of the big D's of the virtues.
The big D of the virtues? That is an aggressive affirmation.
Spiritual mystics of all stripes have always understood that true freedom comes from detaching oneself from the fleeting and meaningless things of this world. Consider the story of Saint Macarius the Great, of Egypt. It is said of Saint Macarius that he became as a god upon earth, for even as God protects the whole world, so did he cover the faults he saw as if he did not see them. Once he came back to his cell to find a thief taking his things and loading them on a camel. Macarius' non-possessiveness was so great that he helped the thief load the camel. When the camel refused to rise, Macarius returned to his cell and brought a small hoe, said that the camel wanted the hoe also, loaded it on, and kicked the camel, telling it to get up. The camel obeyed Macarius' command, but soon lay down again, and would not move until everything had been returned to Macarius.
Inspiring indeed, Gumball, but we can't all grow big beards, live in caves, and command camels through sheer force of humility. What else can we learn about this big D of virtues?
It might be helpful to explore a big D that stands in total opposition to the virtue of detachment.
I see. Do you mean to show these fine people an example of someone stoking the fires of desire and attachment, so that we know what we're up against in acquiring genuine humility?
Yes. The opposite of the big D of virtue is the big D of vice.
Are you referring to the age-old problem of human desire?
I was thinking of this big D.
Imagine Mr. Bean and capitalism had a child, and that child grew up to be an internet televangelist for a new faith called the Church of the Sigma Grindset, and he infected every social media timeline on the little rectangle in your pocket with coked-out elevator pitches for toxic hustle culture multiple times per day. That is Gary Vee. Your brokest mate loves him. Pop shields hate him.
Coffee cup, pay attention. We complain. When we drop, people just want to complain. People love to complain.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. I just gave myself hiccups.
Basically, I want you to eat shit. Eating shit. Eating shit is something I do every day. Eating shit. Eating shit. Eating shit.
Born Gennady Vaynerchuk in Belarus at the humble age of 0, 3 years into his life, his family emigrated to the US and moved into New Jersey, where he says he first made his money ripping the flowers out of his neighbours' yards, ringing their doorbells and selling them back to them at the doorstep.
I went into people's yards, I ripped their flowers out of their yard, I rang their doorbell, and I sold it back to them. This
is the early signs of pure, hard-working, entrepreneurial CEO spirit. The market is the market is the market. You need a trigger warning for the free market. He says he then began making thousands of dollars per week selling baseball cards at the mall in his early teens.
My dad then ruined my life. When I was 14, he dragged me into the liquor store and paid me $2 an hour to bag ice for 15 hours a day.
This is called having a hustler mentality. In 1996, in his freshman year of college, Gary discovered the internet and did what every other 18-year-old boy who had just discovered the internet did straight away. He lubed up his entrepreneurial chops and learned how to use Google AdWords and took his father's business online to sell more of Daddy's fancy grape juice. Gary had launched one of the first ever e-commerce wine sites, which eventually helped his father's business grow from being worth $3 million to $60 million.
That was bad. What's next?
WineLibrary.com. Tasting bad wines so you don't have to.
I'm Gary Vaynerchuk, and I'm Director of Operations and co-owner of Wine Library and host of Wine Library TV.
Back in the innocent days of the information superhighways youth, he had created his own channel under the name of his father's wine company, Wine Library TV.
Snippy snip time! Take a plum, wrap bacon around it, put it in the microwave, and let it go for 5 minutes. Let the plum explode, maybe not. Take it out with a rubber glove because you don't want to burn your hand. Slap on some serious black pepper, take a couple of pieces of asparagus, and bite it. That's what this wine tastes like. Pulling the grapes right from the vineyard. This is pretty darn delicious. A really nice pairing.
In 2008, Gary was invited to make a keynote speech, which led to a $1 million book deal.
And that's what I want to talk about today. PP.
Crush It became an international bestseller, and he would use some of the money that he made from this to invest in tech startups for some shitty little apps that you've probably never heard of before, like Facebook.
I'm making meats now, smoking these meats here.
Gary ended up leaving Wine Library for his father to run, and in 2009 incorporated his own marketing agency with his brother AJ instead, called VaynerMedia. Their aim was to help other brands increase their image online, using the growth of Wine Library as a real-life example of what he was able to do in the digital age. Since then, he's grown VaynerMedia up to an 800-employee business and has been sticking his toes into other various ventures on the side. Gary's latest venture is in the world of NFTs, and I don't get NFTs. Okay, you're paying thousands and sometimes millions for a fucking JPEG. What is the point? In more recent years, Gary has increasingly imposed himself on the motivational speaker space and has turned himself into a sort of walking content farm. And he seems to have an intern with a smartphone and a library of royalty-free inspirational piano music following him around now wherever he goes. So every single nugget of Gary V wisdom manages to plop its way into the toilet bowl of social media. And his style is, say something about working hard and being grateful, but be very vague and throw in a completely insane curveball every now and again to completely throw people off track. Something that literally makes him sound like he needs multiple therapists and an intervention.
I'm gonna rip your fucking faces off. Like, I wanna slice throats.
25, and I'm like, man, I've really been here like...
Bro, I'd rip both my legs off and arms to be 25.
Right.
400 trillion to 1, the odds of being a human being. Your dad might have decided to jerk off one more time the day before.
Right.
And we wouldn't be here.
Damn. Yeah, no, it's real. It's a real statistic if you think about cum.
I was starting to like this Gary V until he started shilling for NFTs. And I'm suspicious of that blonde lady. She never drinks her beer. I think she's a communist.
Young men who sell their souls to this kind of Sigma grind set can only hope to die with the most toys. As for communists, where the grind is enforced by the government, young middle-class Chinese workers are choosing to lie flat instead.
So what is this lying flat thing? You've probably heard about it. Well, my good friend and stand-up comedian Lola Farley actually did a fantastic segment on this, so over to him.
不要看着它风平浪静，苏联当年也是一夜之间就结束了。对，所以我们希望把它压制到10年以内，甚至几年。对，现在的年轻人已经躺平了。Hold up， 年轻人已经躺平了。
The word he just said, 躺平, literally means lying flat. Tangping has emerged over the last few months as a rallying call of Chinese millennials who have had enough of the rat race. It reflects a disenchanted middle class with little to no hope for the future.
对未来失去信心，不再拼命工作，对生活不再反抗，混混日子。
躺平主义, or lying flatism, rejects the attitude and behaviors promoted by the government to keep the Chinese economy running. Working 70-plus hour work weeks with no overtime, marrying early so you can start pumping out kids and offset the burden of an aging population, or taking out a crippling loan on a home that isn't actually yours. Personally, I feel like Tangping has a scent of rebellion to it. An apathetic take on saying, get to the grind, I'ma do me, and just hashtag live my best life. Unfortunately, the CCP ain't down with that, so they took down all Tangping-related discussion threads, deleted the original manifesto posted back in April, and scrubbed the internet of all lying flat groups. Chinese state-run media followed up by rebuking the movement, saying that while people are allowed to resign themselves to misery, they are not permitted to lie down.
认命可以，躺平却不行。
i.e., your pessimism cannot affect your productivity.
You hear that, boy?
Gumball, are you suggesting that one should abandon all their dreams of material success in this life? If so, when Lambo?
No. Babies got to eat. However, true freedom comes from detaching one's heart from the material and fleeting things of this world.
I fear we are no closer to learning the practice of detachment than when we began this episode. My Sigma Grindset mindset demands 3 steps for success right now, or I'm sending you to David Goggins for reprogramming.
It's you all there who are starting that new movement, that new woke movement. We're waking up tired of being a bitch. We're waking up tired of being afraid. We're waking up tired of being a victim. Those of you out there who aren't half-stepping, I appreciate you all. Stay hard.
No need. It's well understood by true spiritual athletes that the key to detachment is the remembrance of death.
This has gone downhill quickly. Can we watch more Gary Vee? I need to get pumped up from all of your Debbie Downer talk about death.
Death is the only constant in this life. The remembrance of death is the secret to knowing what's of real value in this short life which passes like a breath on a cold day. Consider the example of Buddhist monks, who use the remembrance of death to master the big D of the vices.
Monks hated their penis, that's why they were tempted to beat it every day. But that was behavior unbecoming of monks, so they brainstormed all kinds of ways to get monks off the booby train. Some claimed that sexual desire was the same as necrophilia, because at the end of the day, the body was no different from a corpse. Since women's bodies triggered the desires of monks, naturally they had to attack it. They said it was better for your pee-pee to enter the mouth of a snake than to enter a woman. Which sounds weird, but don't knock it till you try it. Life as a monk was difficult. You had to seek answers to the universe's important questions like, why are we here? What does it mean to be enlightened? What does a boob feel like? And this was why they needed corpse meditation. There were supposed to be 9 stages of decay after death. Some monks looked at paintings of decaying corpses, and some looked at actual decaying corpses. How did one get access to corpses? Luckily, poor people existed, and they died often. Burial was actually not that popular until after the 1400s, especially among the poor. So monks went cemetery hopping on the weekends to look at dead bodies and meditate on them. Ah, how the image of the maggots in her eye socket withers my pee-pee. For monks who didn't have the time to visit a cemetery, they were very busy sitting around, they would look at paintings instead. These images were called Kusozu, or images of the 9 stages of a decaying corpse. A monk would burn each stage into his mind. Some texts claimed that there were different types of sexual desires, and that each stage cured one type of desire. Sometimes the stages and the order differed depending on who you asked, but here are the basic stages. Here, the lady is still alive and beautiful, writing her death poem, probably suffering from some terminal disease like cancer or living in classical Japan. Stage 1, newly dead. The lady dies, people around her cry. Her face is pale and her beauty is starting to fade. Stage 2, swelling. The gases build up in her body, swelling it. Her rosy face has turned dark. Her hair is all withered. Her limbs have hardened. She's not looking too good, but you know, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Maybe she's attractive on the inside. Nope, her organs are shit. Stage 3, leaking blood. Blood oozes from her insides. The impurity of her body comes to the surface. Bones broken, muscles ruptured, but her face still doesn't look that bad. Stage 4, oh my Buddha. Decomposition. The monks are really becoming more enlightened now. She looks quite surprised to see her organs spilling out. At this stage, the stench can travel large distances. Stage 5, discoloration and desiccation. Now she's been in the sun a while, she's turning black and blue. The dangers of not wearing sunscreen. Her flesh doesn't look like it's been moisturized in a while. It's falling off, and her bones are showing. A hearty feast for maggots and flies. Stage 6, eaten by animals. Time for the birds and dogs to have lunch. Stage 7, skeleton. Stage 8, dismemberment. She's a mess, just a pile of bones, hair, and nails. Stage 9, turned to dust. Some of these drawings were so accurate that the artists must have sat right next to a real corpse and drawn it over the 9 stages. Say you're a monk and you're walking minding your own business, and suddenly you see a pretty lady across the street, and now your monk staff is filled with holy power. What do? When the needs of the flesh arose, monks probably ran to a death painting to push it back down. These paintings were usually of a beautiful woman dying, showing that even an attractive woman turned ugly eventually. The hope was that the next time a monk saw a good-looking woman, he would feel disgusted. Monks couldn't afford to feel any desire. If you give your desires an inch, they'll take the whole dick. And it wasn't just monks, even nuns meditated on how disgusting their own bodies were. But what's interesting is, while it's true that women were often seen as less than men, women were often disqualified from enlightenment. Through these death paintings of attractive women, you could say that it was women who taught men about their own impurity and led men to enlightenment. So there was also a sense that women were a bit closer to the divine. There were even stories of beautiful women who scolded men about their desires and taught them the errors of their ways.
Okay, Gumball, you've made your case in morbid detail. Surely, there is more to life than pondering the decomposing bodies of smoking hot dead women all day. Isn't there a danger in thinking about death all the time?
Yes, if it leads to the other big Ds of the vices, despair, or despondency. The remembrance of death when used to gain a sober appreciation for the beauty of life brings wisdom. When death becomes an obsession to entertain thoughts of self-harm, it is diabolical and purely the work of demons. Posts on a CTD website, from this big D, are an example of this kind of pure evil.
As one forum member put it, it should be assumed that anyone posting a goodbye thread or asking for advice on a method has already considered their options to get better. We should give the individuals the benefit of the doubt in assuming that they made the best choice they believe they could have made. And just in case all of the above doesn't work, members are reminded on a daily basis: life is terrible, death is beautiful. And if you think I'm exaggerating in any way, here's a post by Cake123, who the admins actively protect and defend when other people on the forum complained about the toxic nature of their posts. This is the truth. The fact is that a peaceful suicide would solve everything in life, and it would be the best outcome possible to pass away peacefully and be permanently free from this existence without having the ability to suffer and struggle in any way. Death is really the only solution when life itself is the problem. The fact that life exists is a cruel mistake, and it's wrong to value life in any way. And these false beliefs prevent others from achieving true peace, which can only be achieved by leaving this world. This person weighs in on just about every thread on the forum to actively encourage others to take their lives as quickly as possible. As I mentioned already, this person has over 16,000 posts. When one user asked for advice on whether they should spend a lot of time researching how to end their life in a painless way, or just get it over with, Cake123's response was, "I would personally just try to go for the most straightforward plan possible." And that leads me to the next inevitable question. How do we know this person isn't a psychopath? Some middle-aged dude who gets a kick out of being involved in as many young people's deaths as possible? How do we know this person isn't a card-carrying murderer? Because if there's one place I think might be likely to attract those kinds of people, it's this place. It's not hard to grab an anime character, say you're a young girl, and then tell people things like, "I agree with you, it'd be better if you die."
Lord have mercy, and deliver us from evil. I had forgotten the depths of deception that the human heart is capable of. This is a good warning that romanticizing death leads only to destruction.
There is nothing sexy about death.
I'm tapping out. I didn't realize my question would lead to such dark places, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Not even Gary Vee could sell me flowers to cheer me from this existential dread.
Good. He's only selling you flowers from your own garden anyway. Giving up all hope in the things of this world to satisfy your soul is the essence of detachment. Consider the story I told of Saint Macarius. He put his trust in the one true living God, and no thief could steal his joy. It was said by Jesus himself that, "He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it." And, in the words of another great sage, "A good name is better than precious ointment. And the day of death is better than the day of one's birth." Better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will take it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter. For by a sad countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of laughter.
Okay, Gumball. I certainly don't feel any better. You say the most impossible things. However, I see the wisdom of detachment, and how remembering one's mortality is the key to attaining this virtue.
There is great, unceasing, heavenly light at the end of this tunnel. A light to set even the darkest heart on fire. Once you've been warmed by its flame, you need never be cold in this world again. Listen to these wise words from one whose eyes have seen the fire.
The Savage Reservation, Refusing the Total System, by Paul Kingsnorth. Did you eat something that didn't agree with you? Asked Bernard. The savage nodded. I ate civilization. The machine is like an exotic gemstone unveiled before us, laid out on a cloth of black velvet. At first we gasp, then we wonder, what is this miracle? Where did it come from? Who made it? It glistens in the daylight in which our best artists cannot capture. The machine glistens and it makes promises. I will save you, it says, and then I will become you. Entwined, we will go forward, together. We have always been together. You need me. It is 2023. You can make a trip to the shops without talking to another human being, but you cannot walk through a city without being filmed. You cannot walk on a beach without being filmed, for there are satellites now. So many satellites. You are never far from a screen. You cannot afford to be. And why would you want to? The screen gives. The screen has abolished time, distance, boredom, longing. Is anything you see on it real? But then, what is reality? Who decides? Do you find this notion oppressive, restricting? Then redefine it. Make anything real. Make everything new. The machine can help you. Standard men and women in uniform batches, the whole of a small factory staffed with the products of a single Bokanovskified egg. Robot bodies will soon fight wars. Robot brushes make art. Robot minds write sentences like this one. Babies will emerge from artificial wombs, their mothers freed to work and consume and play in order that they may be fully liberated. Mother is such a problematic word, like home, like body, like God. Soon the farmers will be gone and the food will be made, not grown. And it will be boundless and formless like your culture, like your very being. There is no form now. Everything is fluid. It flows and rolls on and through. The past is dead, and at the same time was never real. There's nothing to tether you now, only the machine, which has broken all chains. Make yourself into what you want to be. The app is available to download. All conditioning aims at that, making people like their inescapable social destiny. There are codes to scan in order to access things which only yesterday you never knew you needed. Soon, you will need to scan the codes to do anything at all. Soon your children will be taught STEM by an AI, and they will laugh at its jokes. The algorithm will know them better than you do. Soon a number will determine if you're on the list of the good ones. We all want to be good for the machine. The machine has lifted millions out of poverty. The machine will help us to save the planet. The machine makes all the good things universal. Progress, kindness, openness, information. So much information. The machine turns, and must keep on turning forever. It is death if it stands still. 1,000 million scrabbled the crust of the earth. The wheels began to turn. In 150 years, there were 2,000 million. Stop all the wheels in 150 weeks. There are once more only 1,000 millions. 1,000 men and women have starved to death. There's no going back. But why would anyone want to? Everybody's happy now. The machine has saved us, and yet there is always more to be saved from. There are microplastics in your mother's milk. Where did the snow go and the stars? Why are the children so unhappy? What are those scars on their bodies? Perhaps they are markers that point towards progress. There must always be more progress. A love of nature keeps no factories busy. Imagine you are writing with a pen in the evening by a fire. Imagine the light of the fire. It moves in patterns across the ceiling. Perhaps it dances, perhaps it has something to tell you. Imagine the flow of ink onto page. You used to write teenage love letters like this. It's a mess, like your heart. Every line is different. Every letter, it is slow. Your wrist hurts. Can you scrub out that embarrassing sentence? Or will she make it out? Do you need to start again? Imagine you are typing on a keyboard at a desk. Your words show up on a lit screen. The light does not dance, and every letter is the same. It is faster. This, more efficient. You can erase whole sentences with a keystroke. You can print it out so that it looks like a real book. There's no ink on your fingers. You can email her the finished version. It will not take days, you hope, for her to reply. If she emails you back, her writing will look exactly the same as yours. If she doesn't, maybe you could WhatsApp her. Imagine that you've forgotten the difference. Imagine that you never knew it. Old men in the bad old days used to renounce, retire, take to religion, spend their time reading, thinking. Everything is so confusing. There's too much of everything now. Too much information, too many films, too many books and channels and people and brands of shampoo. What is happening? What is right and wrong? Who knows the truth and who is lying? Who is in charge here? Somebody must be in charge. Now, such is progress. The old men work, the old men copulate, the old men have no time, no leisure from pleasure, not a moment to sit down and think. Where are we going? What coin will the ferryman demand? The 9 Years' War, the great economic collapse, there was a choice between world control and destruction, between stability and... Sometimes when the evening comes, you stand outside in the twilight, and it feels like everything is different, but you can never quite explain why. Is it in the air, or is it in the way now that you taste it? When did it change? What changed exactly? You could just be imagining it. Perhaps you're thinking too much. Perhaps you're tired. Perhaps you're just losing your mind. Wheels must turn steadily, but cannot turn untended. There must be men to tend them, men as steady as the wheels upon their axles, sane men, obedient men, stable in contentment. But doesn't it feel as if, quite recently, everything has somehow shifted? I'm damned if I'll go on being experimented with. Not for all the controllers in the world. I shall go away tomorrow too. But where? The others asked in unison. The savage shrugged his shoulders. Anywhere. I don't care. So long as I can be alone.
Absolutely astounding. It's obvious that this guy truly understands the spirit of our age. Before we leave our audience alone, are there any other big Ds we haven't covered?
There are many, many, many more big Ds, like this one, about how to fill a biggie drink.
Drinks. Cold. Are you ready? Here we go. Soft drinks, lemonade, water, cold tea. It's up to you. It's up to me. Cold drinks come in 4 cups. Gotta know the size before you fill it up. Biggie, medium, small, kids meal. Keep it straight. It's a good deal. Use the scoop to fill with ice. Never use the cup. Take my advice. For soft drinks, fill the ice halfway. No matter the size, that's what I say. Tilt the cup and push against the lever. Keeps the foam down now. Isn't that clever? If there's still foam, let it settle down. Don't pour it off, or your boss will frown. When you reach a 1/4 inch from the top, that's where you wanna stop. If the customers say they wanna stay, put the drink on the left-hand side of the tray. If the order's to go, put the lid on tight. Make sure it pops to do it right. Then hand that drink to the coordinator and tell the guest you'll see him later.
Don't forget to smile when you serve cold drinks. Always say thank you to the guest. You're the one that can make the difference.
For lemonade, things stay the same, half full with ice. I said it again, fill the juice to a 1/4 inch from the top, just like you did the pop. Water is a courtesy to our guests. Use a small cup, you know the rest. Now it's time to serve cold tea, but the ice is different, listen carefully. Instead of half full, fill it all the way up to the top of the cup. Add the tea, and if they ask for lemon, put it here, now that's a given. Cold drinks, that's all there is to it. Go ahead and try, I know you can do it.
Thanks for watching. Pixel Talk will return.
Visit tigler.com for more art, apparel, and things yet to be revealed.
Respect the cock.